Good morning. Wee bit nervous as usual, but I'll be okay. Say, this is the third time doing this now, and it doesn't get any easier. But it's good to share, and it was just sort of confirmed last week when it was a couple of weeks ago that Jack had asked me at the prayer meeting about sharing my testimony, and I says yes, I would do it. But it was confirmation even just last week when Jack was given the word last week, and the two verses that he talked about was the two verses that I had used the last time when I'd given my testimony. So it was sort of confirmation for me to get up and share today. As I say, I've tried to cut it down as best I can, and I know you only get a certain time. I'm hoping to get everybody away for about 3 o'clock. As I say, just before I start, my testimony, it's not about me. It's about God. I'm just the one telling the story. My name's Stephen Paul. Most of you probably know me as BA. BA, I'll just briefly on the story how I got the name. Growing up as a young kid, everybody remember the A-Team? Well, that's where it came from. It didn't come from anything else but the A-Team. Me and 3 other mates all had a character in the A-Team. And going through primary school, into secondary school, mine was the only name stuck. Everybody else went back to their own name. BA stuck with me. So I was born 1973. I came from a family of six children. I was the oldest, the 6. 3 children myself, and 6 grandchildren, and another one on the way. Very first home I was born, where it's only for about 6 months. We lived up in Forth River, up in Glencairn, before moving to Sugarfield Street. That's where I spent most of the early parts of my childhood in Sugarfield Street. And growing up in Sugarfield Street, as I say, a lot of things now, kids and stuff, it's all online, games, things like that there. Liam was just playing football in the street, and where Sugarfield Street is, anybody knows, it's just not far from here, and the Peace Wall runs the whole way up. Well, we were right at the bottom of Sugarfield Street, and most of our days growing up was down ratting. We were always down ratting, throwing stones and stuff and things they got there. And just one time, the Peace Wall wasn't the way it was now. It was like big bollards with pillars with a corrugated iron on it, and because the corrugated iron was always getting pulled away, we were able to get underneath, and it was vice versa, come back and forward. So we got through a corrugated iron one day, went to the top of the street, run the whole way down, and breaking all the windows. So a couple of days later, we were down at the bottom, just standing about down the bottom of the street, and there was a couple of guys walking down the back just along Harrow Street, and one of them kept shouting, "Did you see a wee dog?" I says, "No, mister." He says, and then he get closer to me, and he shouts again, "Did you see a wee dog?" And I says, "No." Next minute, he hit me a big dig in the face. He says, "See you next time I see you in there breaking them windows, I'm going to break your jaw." But the 2 of them run anyway, so the only thing it learned me was I never went through that corrugated iron again. I said, a great childhood growing up around Sugarfield Street and stuff. Around about 8 years of age, we moved from Sugarfield Street to Malvern Way, just down the lower Shankill there. It was a bigger house and all. Sugarfield Street was just wee terrace houses. There was only 2 bedrooms in them. And there was only 2 of us at the time in the family. But moved to Malvern Way, a bigger house, 3-bedroom house. The lower Shankill, the houses that were just getting built at the time. And that all changed as well, because within the space of 7, 8 years, there were 6 of us living in the house. But one of the things that stands out, and because when I give my testimony here and talking about sort of things that's happened in my life, there has been a lot of traumas and things that have happened throughout my life and really affected me over that time. I got back till just even things I remember, and these things always stick in my head. I still face them and see them. Was the time that they broke out of the prison. I think it was 1981, 82, the Crumlin Road jail, when they broke out and they parked the cars in and around the side of the courthouse. I was playing on the sand at the top of Malvern Way, just where the courthouse is. And during that time, the police and obviously the ones escaping, shooting at each other, the bullets were hitting off the wall at the top, and I had to hide in behind the sand at the bottom of the street as these bullets were ricocheting off the wall as they were getting chased through the thing. So, and that same thing as well, it happened again in Sugarfield Street, where there was a hoax call called in the bottom of Sugarfield Street, and they opened up a machine gun up the street, and we were in the garden at the time, and just the bullets were just whizzing past us, and Tracy Reid was putting a roller boot on the front door. She gets shot in the ankle, and a policewoman gets shot in the chest. So those kind of things, and it just stuck with me all the time growing up. But I say this was one story here. Is I was about 10 at the time, and one of our mates, Herbie McCollum, he's a bit older than us. He had went and got a tattoo done. The guy was doing tattoos from his house up in the old park, and Herbie had went and got a tattoo done. He came back and he was showing us all the tattoo. And when I seen the tattoo, I says, "I love one of them." I was only about 10. I hear me, there's no way my mommy or daddy's going to let me get a tattoo. So I went to my granny. My granny says, "I'll take you up." So away we went. We landed up the old park, gets into this guy's house, and was showing the tattoos and stuff, and I picked one I liked. He started the machine up, and I heard that buzzing and stuff. Here's me. "Oh, I don't think I can get one now." Here she was, "I'll get one first." I says, "What are you going to get?" She says, "Do me a UDA badge." So she got a UDA badge on her arm first. And then I got my tattoo on. So that was the kind of thing. Now, a wee drink here first. This is just another wee story. My granny's shop, everybody knew it as Aggie's, or some people even called it the UDA shop, where people could go in and get their clothes on tick and just pay it off. There was no such thing as the way designer shops done now. There was none of that at all. If you had a pair of Levi's back then, that was designer clothes. But in my granny's shop, they all used to sit about their tea and all the old folk. And but they always went away every year, around about September. They always went to Blackpool to go and see the illuminations. And they went to the ballroom and all, but a load of the kids went as well, and I was always one of the ones to go away with my granny till the trips to Blackpool. But we'll try to always stay somewhere different every year. And this one year we went, there was a brochures come out, and they were looking and seen this one. So anyway, this is the one we booked, and we get there. It was nothing like it was in the brochure. It just looked as if we were in a different place. And so we gets in anyway and gets the room. We gets first night there. We gets up the next morning and says, "What do you want for breakfast?" And I says, "I'll have cereal." And just look, I could see her looking about. My cousin was with us as well, and she gave my cousin the bowl with her cereal. There was only one bowl. She gave me mine in a po you go to a toilet in. So as I say, that's the kind of sort of things that was happening growing up. And that's just sort of in the early years, just bits and pieces there. As I say, around about 1989, I started dating my wife now, Joanne. And now, to be fair, she was chasing me for a couple of years before that, but I finally gave in. So about 1989, we've been married 25 years there in June, and we've been together for 33 years. See, my dad was always I don't even want to mention football today, but I have to. The tankings we're getting at the minute. And all I can see is Liverpool tops in here. So my dad was a big supporter of Liverpool, and he was always trying to convince all of us to support Liverpool, but none of it. We all supported some. It was either United, and one of them supported Chelsea. Most of the other three were United. And he'd end up, the youngest brother, Jason, but he ended up supporting Chelsea, but he bought him all the stuff and all to try and get him to switch to Liverpool, and it just wasn't happening. So we had to give it all to next door neighbours, wee lad, because he was a Liverpool supporter. But I think that's actually come back on me now, because all the grandsons all support Liverpool. Torture me. Growing up, even at a young age, in my teens and stuff, I always got involved in sort of like community work, sort of working, volunteering in summer schemes and things like that there, trying to help out youth clubs after schools. So around about 1992, my daughter Stephanie was born. That was her first child. We had got our first home just down in Boundary Way, where we'd moved in, and only been in about a year. And it was 1993, just a year after that, there, my brother ran. They were all the way in the summer scheme trip. Anybody knows where the summer scheme's back in? The last sort of trip was all the big coaches that would have went till Portrush or wherever they went, because I know myself from going to a lot of them. But he was away on a trip to Portrush, and on the way back, one of the coaches which he was on stopped on the carriageway to let some of the people off, the mums and stuff that was there, to use the toilet, which was in the garage at the other side of the carriageway. So as those doors opened on the coach, as kids do, they run off. Ram was only 9 years of age. He ran out from the front of the bus, and he got hit by a car and a trailer, and hit by another car on the carriageway. Now, Ram was in a real bad way. There wasn't, when we sort of got the news back that he had been rushed to hospital and stuff and thing. But one thing about that day, which to me God had his hands on him even that day, was there was two nurses driving to a wedding. They ran had died at the scene, and they were able to resuscitate him and sort of keep him alive till the ambulance and stuff got there. So just going on a bit, obviously in hospital, he had all sorts of bones broken, legs, real bad head injuries, and he was in a coma for a right few months, and it got to a point where they wanted to sort of switch it off, but my mum had refused. She says no, I want it to be kept on. And my mum's uncle Eddie McGill was coming down and praying over Ryan and stuff while he was in the coma. And eventually Ryan did come out of the coma, but he had lost all memory of anything before that in his life. Didn't know anybody. He didn't recognise my mum or myself as his brother, my mum as his mother. He just thought my mum was a nurse in the hospital. But just kept on, but and Ryan ended up recovered. He was able to walk again. He still has, and he can communicate and stuff and things like that, but he's just not the person he was, and he just doesn't remember anything before of his life in those past 9 years. But the only thing I regret my mum doing that whole time was she used to put earphones on him in the coma and play music. She just constantly played Dolly Parton. Now he's obsessed with her. He runs fan clubs and stuff, and he's been to Dollywood and all that there. She could have picked anybody else but Dolly Parton. So, to say that's sort of the way things were Anne and stuff. And then just a couple of years after that, my dad had been involved with drugs and stuff, and he'd ended up getting put out of their home in Malvern Way, and they had to move to Bangor. So me and my other brother, the next one down, Gary, we stayed up where we were here because we weren't living in the house at the time, and the other three brothers, one sister, moved to Bangor along with mum and dad. And they settled down there, and they ended up they had to get this extension and stuff built for Ryan because he was in a wheelchair and stuff, and they'd settled down there where they were. And then around about 1987, or 97 was a good year for us because everything was going well in the family and stuff, and we were planning our wedding. Me and Joanne got married on the 14th of June 1987. That following year, my son Darrell was born in April 1988. It was actually the Friday the Good Friday Agreement was signed. As I say, everything was going well, but there was an attempt made on my dad's brother's life where I tried to shoot him in his house. And my dad ended up confronting the guy that tried to shoot his brother in Bangor one day, and that same guy that tried to take my dad's brother's life after my dad confronted him in Bangor. On the 3rd of July, 1998, I got a phone call. I got a phone call. It's a phone call that will never leave me as long as I live, because it just goes over and over in your head, it plays constantly. It was my mom crying down the phone. Your dad's been murdered. Your dad's been shot dead. And that crying just constantly a thing. And even to get the rush to get down to my mom and stuff and get through the cord and see my dad and stuff lying there, they're just visions that you just don't get rid of. And something I'd always really struggled with after that. And even through that time, it was so stressful. Even the very funeral, my dad's funeral, there was a hoax bomb scare put in. There was a death threat on my mum because she had spoke out and knew who it was that actually murdered him. So it was a real hard time for the family, and a lot of things we struggle with. And me, myself personally, even before my dad had been murdered, I'd been out partying and taking drugs myself, drinking, and that's the kind of life I was living. And it wasn't living, it was just, you were just going out and doing it. You were just in those circles. And it actually caught up with me a couple of years later, where I'd taken stuff that was actually what I thought was speed, which wasn't. It was actually some stuff that you actually used for putting a horse down. and I collapsed in the house. Rushed to hospital, my lung had collapsed, and I was lying in that hospital bed and just kept getting out of consciousness and coming around. My mum was with me, and I just kept saying, I just said to myself, I'm dying, and my heart was racing, but eventually I come round and say, I come around and get back out of hospital and stuff, and try to get away from all that kind of lifestyle and stuff and things like that there. But eventually, I went back to it at some point. But I think it was just for me. It was an escape of everything else I was trying to deal with, or the feelings I was having. Things like that there. But eventually I get good again, and I started to get some sort of life back on track and stuff. And our daughter Ricky was born 2006. I say, so having Ricky and stuff, everything was good. Our life, starting to enjoy life and stuff again. But it was just Darryl was always a handful growing up when he was young, always a handful. And my brother-in-law, my sister-in-law and brother-in-law, they were going down to a car. We'd never let Darryl go anywhere, stay with anybody, because we know how much of a handful he was. And Boneyard could actually vouch for it. He used to taxi him to school. I think that's where Boneyard got his musical Tourette's from, because he used to have to sing to Darryl in the taxi the whole way to school and the way home again, to stop Darryl beating him over the head with dinosaurs and all. So my sister-in-law and brother-in-law, they took Darryl down to a caravan. Me and Joanne were actually really doubtful of letting them go. And within a couple of hours, the phone rings. There's Jackie. That's my brother-in-law, and he says, he says, Darryl's nearly drowned in the water. He says, Jackie, stop messing about. He says, you're only away a couple of hours. No, he says, serious, you need to come down. And I just see that sickness feeling I got in my stomach, just having to go down there. I says, where is he now? He said, he's eating a fish supper. I says, what? He says, no, but he says the helicopter was up, the boats were out. I says, what actually happened? He says, we'd only get down, him and Nathan went out round the caravans, run about the caravan park. They stole 2 canoes, took the canoes out into the water, and Darryl's canoe had a hole in it. So he's only about 8 or 9 years of age, and he's all big frame, carry a bit of weight. And they were way out in the water, and Jackie says nobody could get to him. He was out of the canoe in the water. And this is another one where God had his hands on him that day, because by the time that helicopter, the boats and all got to get there, he'd been in the water Jackie says, around about 15 to 20 minutes. He says every time he went under the water, he kept coming up again. When we spoke to Darryl about it, says, you couldn't swim or nothing, so how did you stay up? He says, so somebody had my ankles and kept pushing me up. And this is where the verse actually came in with Jack. And for confirmation for me, as I say, out of all the verses in the Bible, the same 2 that I had was the same 2 that Jack read out last week. Isaiah 43, verse 2 and 3. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. When you pass through the rivers, when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burnt. The flames will not set you ablaze, for I am your Lord, your God. And over that time, and within those next couple of years, my own mental health, depression, and taking real bad panic attacks, and obviously still using drugs, and with other family issues. One day it did finally catch up on me, and that day I wanted to end my life. Just felt so alone. No one really cared. No one would understand what I was feeling with. I didn't want to talk to anybody about it. I was on medication for depression and stuff. I'd been to counselling. Nothing, absolutely nothing was working. I just thought to myself, the best way is for me just to end this. As I sat at home thinking about ending my life, I heard a voice in my head. I just heard this. It was as if somebody was beside me. I heard this voice, not to go through it. And as I sat there, I just couldn't understand what the voice was or where it was, and I wouldn't find that out until later. But I didn't go through with it that day. As I say, I got involved in starting up with a few friends. Community First was one of the wee groups for helping people in community and stuff of the need things. And the other one was a setup was the SAMI group, Suicide Awareness Mental Health Initiative. And I say I set that up through my own struggles to try and help other people. But the main reason for setting it up was we had lost two friends, two young lads from the football community in the same month of July 2016. And we wanted to try and do something to help people within the community and reach out, try and get young men to talk about how they're feeling and get help. And you don't know when you're doing things, I guess, is anybody getting help from it, from what you're doing? But I'd went to work one day and I got a phone call again, and this is Darrell again, he's getting battered today. But I got a phone call, and I'll give you the story up to getting that phone call. Darrell wanted to struggle with his own mental health and stuff too, so he wanted a membership for the gym. It was over at Yorkgate. So I got him the membership. I went to work. Darrell's never drove a car in his life. My car's sitting at the door. Instead of walking over to the gym, Darrell thought he could drive a car. So he gets in the car, puts his bag in the passenger seat, and drove the car through the house and through the wall. Knocked the wall down, so I had to come back home, get the car towed off out of the house, off the top of the wall. So it was in getting fixed. But on that Saturday, I always went to football. I always loved my football. I get down, and I was involved in football for a long time. And I was walking down Ballymacary Lane, and I was just, and I'd always been out walking anyway, so I was going walk down the Agnes Street, down to the Hammer, to a football pitch. And as I turned down to get down the Ballygomartin Road, I got so far and I got this feeling to turn. And I don't know what it was, where it was somebody talking to me or telling me, but I ended up turning around and going back up the road till the bus stop. There was a young man sitting at the bus stop, and he actually said to me, he says, we sat for about a minute, and then he says, I was actually wanting to contact you, but I just couldn't do it. And I started talking to him now. The young man was struggling, and so we got on the bus together, and I talked to him the whole way down on the bus, and I arranged with him that on the Monday I'd meet up with him for the wee group we had and get him some sort of help and support. So he had been going that for a number of weeks and got himself back on track again. But when I'd sort of met up with him again, which was I got saved on the 9th of August 2000, and I met him again on the 12th or something. I met him on the 12th of August, and he actually said to me, he says, I didn't know this until that day, but he got saved the week before me on the 3rd of August. And that's a story was to me was that day at the bus stop, he says, you saved my life. He says, I was going down to kill myself, to jump in the lagoon. So I believe God made me turn that day to go to that young man at the bus stop. I'm thankful he did. So to where I get saved and had led up till it, I've been going to all different sort of for about 4 or 5 years, going to likes of Living Hope and stuff. Some of the wee nights I had on, I've been to some of the testimonies, and I went to the one Tommy and Boneyard done up in Crumlin Road Jail, and to see everybody there, and I always looked. I watched things online. I'd even watched some of the services from New Life. I watched their some of their deeper ones, the ones that went on in the early hours of the morning. And this was before I got saved or even knew God or wanted to know God. But I was watching these things and even seeing people, especially the wee Monday night thing before, I used to watch it and see the people sitting there and going, my goodness, look how these people's lives have been changed and stuff. That's the way I looked at it. But for me personally, I was out. I started doing this charity walk for Children's Hospice in the month of June. We're walking something like, it was 3 miles. We're trying to do 100 miles in the month of June. So me and my mate, Pigeon, and we were out walking every day. But we bumped into Boneyard and stuff and a few other ones, and we met up with us a few times. So after that sort of charity walk finished, me and Boneyard and stuff and Pigeon had still continued to go out our wee walks and stuff, but I was always quiet in them kind of things, but Pigeon was always questioning Boneyard about God and stuff, and he was answering him back on these wee walks we're going around. When Boneyard said, tell us one day, he says, well, why don't you two of you come down to church? So I took him up on the invitation, and it was in July 2000. So at the end of July. And that first time coming into church in here, and I'd been the first week and then the second week, and I was really, really enjoying it. I actually felt I was getting something out of it, just being in the presence in the church. But it was only on that third Sunday, on the 9th of August, when the pastor when he was giving the message that day, and he talked about the unconditional love and what I was going through myself and feeling. Do you ever get that where you think something's directed at you? That's the way I felt. I felt the message that day was directed at me. Because people are only separated from God from what we do wrong. But there's good news. Jesus paid the price for all our sins, all of us. And because of what Jesus did, we can have a relationship with God and experience His unconditional love. And that's when I thought to myself, that's the unconditional love that I want. It's a love you can't earn. It's a love no matter what. It's what I've been looking for. And that day I prayed that simple prayer to God to be in my life. Forgive me of my sins and help me to have this life that you have promised. Going back to the day I wanted to end my life, it was God that saved my life that day when I had planned to end it. He spoke to me and told me not to go through with it. Now instead of having the desire to die, I had a reason to live. When I went from despair to hope, and you can too. I'm just going to read a wee passage here just before I come to 5 minutes or so before I come to a close. Isaiah 41, verse 10. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Yes, I will help you. And I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. From I've been saved, as I say, being a Christian, everybody thinks everything just goes away. We still have our struggles, but what I can say, God has placed me in the right place. I love this church. I love the people in it, and the encouragement they get, the support they get, everything that goes on in the church during the day, during the there's always something. I encourage people, if you're part of the church, to get involved in it, because it's what's helped me get through these past 2 years, as well as having God in my life. And then I got the opportunity to get on the leadership team. I say that's something I love doing. Something I just have a thing for community and helping people. And I was blessed to be asked to do that in such a short space of time that I've been with the church. Say just my love for the church and the people in it. When I go back to the 3rd of July there, just when not too long ago when I got baptised, I had this plan in my head for years about ending my life. I'm the same age now as my dad was when he was murdered. And I had this plan that that's the day I was going to end my life. I knew what age my kids and all were going to be. And it was weeks before it when I didn't even think of the date. I just remember Jonathan saying to me, "Have your name down to be baptised?" And I didn't know the date at this point. And it was only a week later we had to be meeting about what was happening at the baptism and all, and the date. And then I started thinking, those thoughts started coming into my head again. And I was going, what's going on here? Do you know, I just couldn't understand it at all. But it was God going before me. That's what I believe happened, because even that day, getting baptized, when the mic was getting passed, I wasn't going to share that day. But something told me I had to, because I spoke to Boneyard about it a couple of days before, about what I had planned to do and what was happening, and then with the baptism coming up and stuff. And when that came up, and even when Jonathan was up speaking, he talked about suicide and stuff. And it was just when that mic was handed, I just knew I had to share what was going on and what God had done. But most of all, when I go back to when I first gave my testimony the first time, back on Sunday the 3rd of April, my grandmother was very ill, and she'd been in hospital. They'd only give her days to live. And she actually died the day before. She died on Saturday. And I had the opportunity to lead her to the Lord weeks before that. But I was preparing myself. I knew she was going to die. But when you see God working, and this is the amazing thing about it, is she wouldn't have got to see me give my testimony. So for the first time, and she probably wouldn't have got to see it, only God took her on the Saturday. I was able to come here on the Sunday, and she could be here with me. As I say, it's amazing God we have, and it's not through what we say. It's through what people see in us. The change. People have to see the change. When you come to Christ, it's the change people will see in you. And I think that's been a big thing for me, because my sons get saved, my mothers get saved, my wives get saved. It's had a big impact on my family, and I can't thank and praise him enough for the change he's making in not just my life, my family's life, and I want that for everybody's lives. So just to finish off, and not keep you any longer, I just want to read this one passage, then just give you the last wee message here. John 14, verse 6, Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. And my message to you sitting here today, anybody watching online, is Jesus is the only way to heaven. Accept Jesus into your life today, because the Bible's our passport, Jesus is our pilot, and heaven's our destination. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, B.A. Rodney and Rosie, if you can come to the platform, please. We're going to finish off in a moment with just a song. When I think of Boneyard, I'll get that name out of my head quickly. Bonehead, never mind Boneyard. When I think of B.A., I think of someone that I would have looked to at one time as a young man who never really should have made it. So many things against them in this community. And there are others in this place, men and women, and you look back in your life as well, and you know that you never should have made it. But God had plans for your life, and you've discovered those plans. Jeremiah 29:11, I know the plans I have for you, says God. They're plans to bless you and not to harm you. And when you find God's plans and purposes in your life, then He gives you something worth living for. And He takes you through the circumstances and situations that are there to destroy you. And one thing I can say about B.A. is that in the 2+ years that I've known him, I knew him before that. Someone was on the shackle, knew the stuff he was getting and helping out and so on and into. But over this past 2+ years, I've seen him as someone who in many respects has reminded me of me when I committed my life to Christ. I jumped into everything. Everything. I even went to the women's meetings. I'm not saying you should do that. B.A., you don't need to turn up at Fire Ambers on Thursday night. But I did. I went to everything. B.A.'s been like that. He comes to everything in this church. It's part of the life of the church. Doesn't just fulfill a role, he's part of the life of the church. And I believe that that's why God is blessing him and using him in so many different ways, and why he's able to point at his family that God has worked in their lives as well. Doesn't stop with the one person. And I'm honored to know him, but there are many, many others in this place, and you've got similar testimonies of the goodness of God in your life. But I just want to challenge those that think you've got one foot in and one foot out of the church. It doesn't work that way. You get those both feet into the church. Stop boasting about other things. Hey, it's okay to have a laugh sometimes about football and whatever, but sometimes we just boast of stuff in life as if that's what we live for. Stop boasting about the stuff that's not going to take you through life and not going to take you into eternity, into the right place. Get your eyes firmly fixed in Jesus. Get involved in the life of the church. Get involved with other believers, and let God use you to touch not just your family, but to touch a community. And He can do it for every person in this room. Let's just bow together, please, for a moment's prayer. When we finish worship time, or Rodney and Rosa and the team, they're going to be leading us in a song as we worship together as we close out this service. But there's an opportunity. If you need to receive prayer today, over to my left, your right, our prayer team will gather there. And if you need to receive prayer, we want to encourage you to go and meet with them and let them pray with you and pray for you. But right now, at this moment in time, BA's throwing a challenge out to those that are not yet Christians. John 14:6, Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me, He said. There is no other way but Jesus. And you have an opportunity right now to come to God the Father through Jesus Christ and all that He's done for you. We're not asking you to become religious. We're asking you to follow Jesus Christ. We're asking you to understand who He is and what He's done for you. And to be prepared from this moment to do what BA and others in this place have done. And to turn around from following your own stuff in life. To say, Lord Jesus, I know You're worth following. And I'm going to follow You from this moment forward. And if you'd like to do that, I want to encourage you right now to pray a simple prayer with me. You don't need to pray it out loud, just pray it quietly in your heart. But you pray it meaningfully. And you pray it to God right now. And as I speak this prayer out in just a few words at a time, you repeat those words in your heart, but you make them your prayer to God. And you're making a determination, yes, I'm going to follow Jesus from this moment forward. But then immediately after, when we finish praying that prayer, I'm going to ask you, if you prayed, to let me know, no one else will be looking around, to let me know that, yes, I prayed that prayer. I'm going to ask you to raise your hand, and then you take it down again. We're not going to embarrass you in any way. So you want to give your life to Jesus, you want to follow Him from this moment forward, then in your heart you pray this to the Lord right now. Lord Jesus, I thank You. I thank You for what You've done in BA's life. But I thank You that You can do that in my life also. So today I ask You to forgive me from my sins. Come into my life. Be my Lord. And be my Savior. And help me to follow You from this day forward.